My best friend cheated on me with my girl, but I got perfect revenge and ended up with a better woman. I walked into my favorite country bar, found a spot at the small table in the back, ordered a sandwich, fries, and a beer, sat there watching TV, which happened to be the PBS channel, where they were discussing country music, reminiscing about past stars, most of whom are now deceased, although a few still remain, and it all had a kind of melancholy vibe to it. As they delved deeper into the stories of these legends, I never really understood how many of them came from humble backgrounds. While I was stuffing my face, I glanced over and saw my best friend Bob walking Olivia in, which shocked me because I always thought Olivia was my girlfriend and I had asked her out tonight, but she told me she had already made plans with friends tonight and suggested we hang out tomorrow. Olivia and I had been dating for 6 months and I felt like we were already a couple, spending almost every weekend together. I found myself deeply in love with her, and she claimed to feel the same way about me. We even discussed the possibility of getting engaged, but we felt that we could wait a few more months. After all, we had been dating since the end of the TV show. Someone pressed the jukebox and a crazy song came on. I listened to the song This Is Part 2. I know you'll love me till the day you leave me for someone new. This got me thinking, and if Bob was that someone new, then the problem was that Bob knew exactly how I felt about Olivia. I don't think our man code meant much to him. I kept listening to the song while they played the couple. In the end, the first one to go crazy, thinking my love could keep you. I tried like crazy, cried like crazy, loved like crazy. I got up from the table, walked over to Bob and Olivia. They glanced at me, and Bob started to say, "Charlie, if I ever see you again, one of us will end up alone in a hospital. As for you, Olivia, I'm really disappointed. It's clear that it's over between us. You've shown me your true colors." The next day, I walked out of the bar. My phone kept ringing. It was Olivia, but I wasn't in the mood to talk. Then the phone rang again. This time it was Bob. I answered. "What the hell do you want, Charlie? I'm really sorry. You know, I've always found Olivia attractive. We got to talking at work, and I asked her out. She said yes. Don't lie to me. You knew she was my girlfriend, and you asked her out. How many times have you been with her, Charlie?" "Just a few times, Bob. If you lie to me, I'll be on your case." "3 times, Charlie. We've been together 3 times. We've got a bit of a thing going." "I'm sorry. And Alice? Does she know you're cheating on her?" "She deserves better than you, Bob. I don't want to see you again. As for Olivia, you two can be together." I hung up. Alice is Bob's girlfriend. The 3 of us, Bob, Alice, and I, work in the same factory. There's a story about how we met. The phone rang again. It rang again. It was Olivia. I thought I'd better face the music. "What is it, Olivia?" "I want to say I'm sorry. Bob asked me out a few times, and I finally agreed to go out with him once. It didn't mean anything. Cut the crap. I talked to Bob, and he told me that you were together at least 3 times. I bet it was more than that. Is it about the money? Good luck to you both. You 2 money grubbers are a perfect match. I definitely don't want anything to do with you. The only person who feels sorry for you is Alice, who believes that you and Bob are her good friends. Don't bother with my life and stop calling. I grew up in Kentucky with 8 siblings. I'm the oldest. I played high school football, and in my senior year I received a scholarship to play for a university in Ohio. I was 6'3", 260 pounds, and played offensive lineman. My parents couldn't afford to send me to college, so I took the scholarship. I wanted to become a mechanical engineer because I like working with my hands. I was a bit of an introvert, but I had a thing for women. I grew up with my sisters and learned to respect women. My mother advised me to treat girls the way I would like my sisters to be treated. I developed a friendship with a guy named Bob. He seemed like a sociable guy. He wasn't athletic, but he was certainly smart and mentioned that his family had some money. He claimed he didn't have much now, but might inherit a fortune in the future. He was studying for a degree in business management, and football didn't occupy my time back then. We hung out a lot. Bob was good with women, and we went to a lot of parties where there were plenty of women. I was more of an introvert, but there were still quite a few girls interested in me. I have to admit that Bob helped me a lot in that regard. Otherwise, after graduation I would probably have stayed in Ohio and taken the job as a mechanical engineer at Ford. The salary was stable. I found a small apartment near the factory, and managed to drive off with a new pickup truck every week. I set aside some money each month to send to my parents for help. My father was a coal miner and we had a deep bond. Bob got a job in the warehouse in the city where the Ford plant was located. It turned out that he was one of our suppliers and eventually rose step by step to become the warehouse manager. We often hung out together at the weekend and he revealed that he had a girlfriend at work. Her name was Alice and she was the inventory control supervisor. He introduced me to Alice, and to be honest, I fell in love with her easily. But Bob and I had an unbreakable brotherly bond, and I couldn't risk breaking it. It was hard, but I decided to abide by this rule. The girl from the factory, but it was purely platonic. I couldn't join Bob on his double dates very often because Alice's presence would stir my emotions. She was always the sweetheart in my heart. Bob invited me to their factory's Christmas party because they were one of our suppliers. I thought, why not? I agreed to go to their party. I met a beautiful girl named Olivia. She had a great figure and was curvy. Olivia dressed sexier than Alice. She was very good at flirting, and she said she worked with Bob and Alice as a secretary for a senior executive. I told her about my job, and we danced all night. We decided to meet again, and even spend New Year's Eve with Bob and Alice. Alice said something, happy for me to have found a partner, but the sincerity was lacking that night. I took Olivia back to my place. She was very pretty, if you know what I mean. The next morning, Olivia was surprised that I lived in a modest apartment, and I explained that I was just starting out in my job and didn't need much, as I also sent money home to help my family. I told her that one day I would definitely worry about these material things, but not yet. She mentioned that Bob's family is very wealthy and, considering he is my best friend, she wanted to know if this was true. I confirmed this and mentioned that they paid for his education. Our dating saga continues. We go to town almost every weekend. My feelings are getting deeper and so is hers. We have done a lot together. The bedroom activities are the highlight, but I admit, her frivolous behavior and constant talk of material things makes me uncomfortable. I tried to reassure her that we could still create a wonderful life together, but things got a little off kilter when we went on 2 dates with Bob and Alice. There was a tension between us that I can't quite explain. Update 1: Olivia and I have been together for about 6 months now, and we've talked about the future, and maybe even getting engaged. Olivia says we don't have to rush into a decision. We went to a county fair, and at one of the cheap jewelry stands I bought Olivia a friendship ring. I told her it meant she was mine until she was ready to get engaged. She grinned when she slipped. I should mention, by the way, that I work out at the gym about 3 days a week after work and have managed to drop the weight to 230 pounds, which I'm quite happy with. Later, in a country bar, I had to admit that it really hurt to see my girlfriend kissing my best friend. After seeing them in the restaurant, I called and talked to them. I cut off all contact with them, even though I was furious. I really felt sorry for Alice. 2 weeks went by and then my phone rang. Charlie, I'm really sorry about you and Olivia. I thought she might have screwed up, but I didn't expect it to be Bob. What's going on? Alice? Are you saying there's someone else at work? I saw her having lunch with her boss Brad, which seemed pretty normal, and I thought about telling you, but I didn't want to hurt you. What if I'm wrong? And then I heard about Olivia and Bob. I cut ties with them when I found out I'd abandoned Imper Pronto. It was a bit hard to see them together at work, but I've been busy. Alice, thank you for reaching out. I was worried about you. You're one of my closest friends. Maybe we can get together sometime. I'd like that. Charlie, it was nice chatting with you after the conversation. I'm not sure if I feel better or worse. A few weeks go by. One evening, when I'm at the supermarket, I bump into Alice. Hey Charlie, nice to see you. How have you been? Good. You're dating again. She smiles at me. I turned down a lot of dates because I already had someone special in mind. I didn't want to mess things up in case he decided to call. Oh, I'm sorry. I actually wanted to ask if you'd like to. Yes, I'd love to go out with you. I hope you'll ask me. So when and where do we meet? I need to know what to wear. I thought about Saturday and my favorite country bar and grill. We said goodbye and I confirmed that I'd pick her up at her house at 6 o'clock. She looked beautiful in her Western attire. Jeans, vest, cowboy hat and boots. I opened the truck door and she jumped in. On Saturday we were at a country western band and singer, and we grabbed a booth and ordered a few beers. The band didn't start playing for another hour, which gave us time to chat. I was surprised to find out that she was originally from Kentucky, just across the county from where I grew up. She went there to college, looked for work, and ended up getting a job at supply planning in Ohio. I got the double bacon cheeseburger and fries, and she had the Reuben sandwich. We shared the fries. It was great to reconnect with her. She asked if this was the same bar where I met Bob and Olivia. I confirmed that it was indeed the same place, but I wasn't going to let a few liars ruin my favorite hangout. And she just smiled at me in response. Once the band started playing, we got up and danced. They opened with 2 slow songs to encourage couples onto the dance floor. Their playlist was always the classic hits, the kind of thing people want to hear. They switched to a faster song and we both sat out. I told Alice that I didn't really like to dance fast, but I like to watch women dance. They played a few Roy Orbison songs, which I've always liked, and then a few Lita Lita songs. Alice and I danced to the slow songs. The host told the ladies to do line dancing, and a few men joined in. Why not join in the line dancing? I jokingly asked Alice, "You just want to see my big?" She got up and joined the other ladies, smiling and flirting. The line dance started, and I couldn't help but keep staring at Alice. She looked straight at me and wiggled her hips. I grinned and even applauded for her when the song ended. She smiled and came over, and I leaned over to kiss her, but flinched. I apologized. "I don't regret it," she replied, and she kissed me again. We danced, drank beer, and had a great time. Time flew by, and they announced that the last song was about to start. When the song ended, we swayed to the music. I held Alice close and leaned in to give her a soft kiss on the lips. I walked her to her house and asked if she wanted to go out again the following Saturday. I suggested that we could go to Cedar Point, a large amusement park in Ohio, and she readily agreed. We said goodnight and I kissed her. I didn't want to rush things on the first date. I had a great week at work. On Friday, I called Alice to confirm the plan for Saturday. She mentioned that she had heard of the park but had never been there before. On Saturday morning, I picked her up and took her to the park. We chatted along the way, and I mentioned whether she had mentioned to Bob or Olivia that we were dating. She told me that she hadn't spoken to either of them about it. We had a great time, riding all the roller coasters and various other rides. There were also a bunch of shows in the park which we watched on the way back. We decided to go to the Texas Roadhouse for dinner. When we got home, we were exhausted. Alice shared a room with her roommate Joan, a friendly woman in her 50s who worked in a retail store. Alice was grateful to have a roommate. Joan treated her like family, and the two of them had a very close relationship. I told Alice that I would be out of town the upcoming weekend, but expressed interest in seeing her when she returned the following week. She replied that I should give her a call when I got back. We kissed, and I told her that I really cared for her. She replied that she had always liked me, too. Upon returning home, I immediately called to invite her to an important dinner event. My boss was hosting an anniversary celebration for him and his wife at the Hilton Hotel. I explained to Alice that I had booked the hotel room for the night because I expected there to be a lot of drinking. I understood her if she didn't want to come. "Charlie, I'd be happy to go with you. We won't need 2 beds. You know, I want you to know that I'm in love with you. Just promise to be honest and don't cheat on me. I'll never do anything to hurt you, and I won't let anyone else hurt you. Alice, can we use your car? I don't want to drive a truck to a fancy event. We can take my car. I'll tell Joan I won't be home that night. I'll park the truck at her house and we'll decide to use her car for the event." We arrive early and plan to get ready at the hotel. On the way, Alice mentions that she's thinking about changing jobs. She feels uncomfortable seeing Bob and Olivia so often, and she even shares a rumor that Olivia might be pregnant. To get ready for the party, I put on my evening dress in the bathroom and then walked into the bedroom. Alice looked absolutely stunning. She was wearing a fitted blue dress that accentuated her figure, and her hair fell to her shoulders. She looked elegant and glamorous. "You look absolutely beautiful." I probably didn't care about the party itself at all. I commented that her reaction was cheeky. "Oh no, you don't. I didn't go to all this trouble just to change again," she said with a smile. We went downstairs to the party. On arrival, my boss and his wife greeted us. He introduced his wife and warmly welcomed us to the party. As they left, I noticed him ogling Alice. I knew many of the attendees and introduced Alice to them. She received many compliments. We got some drinks and found a table. There was a selection of appetizers at the event, and dinner was planned. Alice recognized several women she knew from her role in inventory control. I found Mary, the head of human resources, and started a conversation. Mary, are there any vacancies in inventory control or supply chain? In fact, Janice is retiring next month, and I'm in charge of finding her replacement. Do you have any candidates in mind? Actually, my date, Alice, whom you met, is looking for a new opportunity. She's in charge of inventory control and really likes her job, but she'd like a change. Tell her to come see me on Monday and I'll set up an interview. She's a very impressive woman. Thank you, Mary, that's very helpful. I'm sure you will be. Mary laughed and said the party was a blast. I danced a few times with the wives of the employees, and Alice also danced a few times with her husband. Although we spent most of the time dancing together, the dinner dishes were absolutely delicious, with choices of roast beef, chicken or shrimp, as well as a variety of side dishes. After a few drinks, we said goodnight to the host and returned to the hotel room. Alice, are you sure? I don't want you to think I'm taking advantage of you. Charlie, don't overthink it. Just stay with me. She replied. We helped her hang up her clothes neatly, including my tuxedo. We pulled the covers back on the bed. I turned off the light and we snuggled close together and fell asleep. The last thing I heard before falling asleep was, I love you, Charlie. I woke up to the smell of fresh coffee. Alice had taken a shower, got dressed, and made us each a cup of coffee. Good morning, Charlie. Did you sleep well? It's been a while. I took a shower, had a cup of coffee, and responded. Alice and I went to the dining room and enjoyed a pleasant breakfast with our colleagues. We saw a lot of familiar faces among the staff, all with smiles on their faces, and it seemed that we had become a well-known couple. I told Alice that Mary from Human Resources had passed our table on her way out and said to Alice, "See you on Monday." She smiled and left. Alice asked, "What's wrong?" I laughed and said, "I forgot to tell you, you're interviewing Mary Ford for the job on Monday, that I remembered you saying you were considering a change of jobs." With tears in her eyes, she whispered, "Charlie, I hope this isn't a dream. I love you very much." We had a long talk on the way home. Alice, I hope I'm not rushing you, but in 2 weeks I'm going to visit my parents in Kentucky, and I was hoping you'd come with me. I'm leaving Friday night and returning Sunday, and if you like, we can stop by and see your parents. I'd love to go with you, but my parents are pretty traditional, and we probably won't be sleeping in the same bed. I'm sure it'll work out. I replied with update 2, and we set off for Kentucky. I mentioned the latest rumors about Bob and Olivia planning to get married next month, as Olivia was obviously pregnant. I believe Olivia thinks she's marrying into money, but she'll soon realize that it's not Bob who's rich, but his parents. Bob may live in luxury, but it's mainly maintained by debt. On arrival at the parents' house, we were welcomed into the spacious old farmhouse, which had plenty of bedrooms and bathrooms. The siblings, who still live there, came out to welcome us, followed by Mom and Dad. I hugged everyone and introduced Alice, who got a warm hug from all of them. We chatted for hours. I knew my family would like Alice. She looked at the photos on the wall, especially the one of me in my football uniform when I was younger. I noticed tears in Alice's eyes. What's wrong? Are you okay? Do you remember that time you were playing football in green? After a away game, you walked through the tunnel and 2 guys tried to drag a girl in a yellow sweater into the tunnel. You confronted one of them, knocked him to the ground, and then pounced on the other. You warned them that if they harassed the girl again, you would come back and finish what you started. Then you went into the changing room. Yes, I remember that incident, but I never told anyone about it. Charlie, how do you know about it? I was the girl. I didn't see your face, just the number 67 on your jersey. Later I tried to find you, but no one knew who you were. I managed to find out your name was Charles, but that was all. I was waiting for my friend by the tunnel when these 2 guys grabbed me and dragged me into the tunnel, saying they wanted to have some fun. I shouted at them to let me go, and that's when you appeared and they left me alone. She leaned in and kissed me. You feel so familiar. When I first met you, Bob introduced us to each other. That's the only nice thing I can say about Bob. He introduced us. My mother made up a bed for Alice and told me I could sleep on an extra bed in the basement. At around 1 a.m., Alice and I spent some quiet, intimate time together, and despite the difficult circumstances, she returned to her bed about an hour later. On Saturday, we visited Alice's family. She never mentioned that her parents were rich and that they had a beautiful house. Alice had 2 young, beautiful sisters who were a few years younger than Alice. She introduced me to her parents as her boyfriend. I overheard one of her sisters tell Alice that I looked quite handsome. We went inside and talked for a while. Hank's father asked about my job and background. He expressed concern for his young daughter, whom he affectionately called Mr. Carter. I want to talk to you about marrying your daughter. I'm here to ask for your blessing. Alice and I hadn't discussed this before, so she looked surprised and looked at me with tears in her eyes. Although we had been apart for a long time, our love was strong, and we believed we could live together. Charlie, I'm grateful that you came to talk to me, even though you don't have to. You should know by now that Alice will listen to her heart. Alice, do you love Charlie? Yes, Dad. I love him with all my heart. Then I give you my blessing, but on one condition. You must get married here so your mother and I can give you a proper wedding. Oh, we'll cover the cost. I pulled out the engagement ring from my pocket, got down on one knee, proposed on one knee. She said yes, then kissed me, then rushed over to kiss her father, hugged her mother, who shed tears of joy. We all stood up and enjoyed a delicious chicken dinner together. We returned to my parents' house and mentioned to the Carters that we would keep them informed about our future plans. They were very excited when we shared the news of our engagement with Mom and Dad. Many relatives who still live nearby came over for a barbecue, with Dad proudly acting as the grill master and Mom preparing the meat and other dishes. Alice offered to help with the cooking, saying that she also likes to cook. All my relatives came to say hello and meet Alice. She was the first woman I had brought home to meet them, and they assured me that she was worth cherishing and encouraged me to make her happy. After the lively celebrations, we said goodbye to our relatives and promised to let them know the date of the wedding. Just before we went to bed, Alice whispered to me that my mother had warned her about an obstacle on the stairs. As a result, she accidentally kicked a shoe, which rolled down the stairs. Alice tried to apologize, but her mother reassured her that she had been young once, and that Alice's lively nature was probably the reason she had so many children. Alice did come back downstairs, and we spent a quiet, intimate time together. We tried to keep it quiet, but you know how these things go, and it wasn't until 5 a.m. that she finally went back upstairs, after a night of intimacy that we slept in until the morning. Mom and Alice exchanged knowing smiles. We had a hearty country breakfast, then said goodbye with hugs and kisses before going our separate ways. Alice had an appointment with the Human Resources Department before Tuesday. She got a call from Mary informing her that she had got the job and could submit a 2E notice. She called me to share the news, but I already knew, and we decided to celebrate that night at my favorite country bar, where we ordered steak dinners. Alice mentioned that Bob and Olivia were on vacation this week and that they were going to Las Vegas to get married next week. She said it had been the most enjoyable 2 weeks she had spent at the factory because she didn't have to deal with Bob and Olivia anymore. She added that everyone was very sad to see her go, but they understood that she was looking for better opportunities and that working at Ford meant having some of the highest-paying jobs in the area. Alice was lucky to get the interview and the offer of employment, and she had earned it all. She kept our date and engagement a secret from everyone, and she revealed that before leaving, she left an anonymous note on Bob's desk suggesting that he consider a DNA test after the baby is born, because his wife often has lunch with her boss. The note ended with best wishes, but she deliberately didn't sign it. Since she started working at our company, she has always had a bright smile on her face. Whenever a guy asks her out, she proudly shows off her engagement ring and made it clear that she was engaged to me. They knew better than to cross the line. Alice said that June was helping her plan the wedding. June played the role of attentive guardian. June, who had a married daughter of her own, became close friends with Alice and shared expenses like roommates. I went there a few times a week to help out when needed, I contacted my mom and asked if she could provide a list of relatives and friends to invite from our side. My mom M went the extra mile and bought the invitations and took care of them for us. I gave her the wedding date, which was set 4 months from now. Alice talked to her mom about the wedding date, and her parents took care of finding a suitable church and a spacious reception venue. Her mom volunteered to take care of sending out the invitations to their family. Given her father's business background, he had many contacts and clients, and I was anxious about everything because I actually contributed the least. I contacted a few colleagues to see if they would be interested in attending the wedding, and I told them that we were planning to get married in Kentucky. Surprisingly, many people said they would like to attend. Thanks to Joan's connections at the retail store, she was able to arrange a tailor for Alice's wedding dress. Joan also confirmed that she and her daughter would attend the wedding. Sophie, Alice's mother, called to tell us that she had already found a caterer, but she mentioned that the wedding date was approaching and she needed to determine the number of people attending the wedding. Sophie also mentioned that her husband Hank had arranged for a talented band. Everything seemed to be in place. I asked Alice if we were going overboard, as it was clear that the wedding would be very expensive. Charlie, this lavish wedding is entirely the parents' idea. They have dreamed of a wedding like this since we were little. Trust me, my sisters will have equally lavish weddings. Why have you never mentioned that you come from a wealthy family? I've kept my family's financial situation a secret because I want you to be interested in me as a person. I've only told Joan about this, not even Bob. Does this secret change anything for you? No, I'm interested in you as a person, not anything else. If you like, I can sign a prenuptial agreement. Charlie, we don't need a prenuptial agreement. I'm sure we'll be together forever, and besides, I don't have much wealth at the moment, but maybe I will inherit something in the future, but not much at the moment. I'll have a husband who loves me to support me. Alice has sorted out the lineup for the wedding party. Her father will walk her down the aisle, her sister will be a bridesmaid, and her younger sister will be one of the flower girls. She has also invited her 2 married sisters to be bridesmaids, her brothers-in-law to be groomsmen, and her single brothers to be paired with her sisters. As it turned out, my younger brother would be the best man. My nieces and nephews were chosen as flower girl and ring bearer respectively. We contacted them and they gladly accepted. Thankfully, it really did become a family gathering. Alice was thriving in her new job and everyone admired her. She was well liked by her colleagues. However, problems arose because she had only been working for 4 months and had not yet taken any vacation. We brought rain and considered leaving on Friday night, getting married on Saturday and returning on Sunday. It seemed feasible even though the time frame was tight. 2 weeks before the wedding, the factory manager called me into his office. We were on good terms, and he even mentioned that he planned to attend the wedding. Hey, Charlie, I hear you're having trouble with the wedding schedule. Mary mentioned that you're leaving on Friday, getting married on Saturday, and returning on Sunday. Yes, Mark, that's the plan. Alice doesn't have any more vacation days. Okay. Charlie, remember to tell your lovely wife that we've approved her personal time from Thursday until next week. By the way, I've bought 2 tickets for the 4-day cruise as a honeymoon gift. Thanks, Mark. I'm sure she'll be delighted. I shook his hand and then contacted Alice's office to tell her we were going out to lunch. I told her I had. While we were in the restaurant, Alice asked what was up. Charlie, what do you want to talk about? Mark called me into his office and told me that they were giving you the week off from Thursday until the following week, that we didn't have to rush there or rush back, etc., etc. And more, he gave us 2 tickets for a 4-day cruise as a wedding gift. I put the tickets on the table, and my Alice naturally began to cry. We had everything ready for the wedding, and everything was ready for the wedding, and we could leave on Thursday, which made things much simpler. The rehearsal and rehearsal dinner are scheduled for Friday. I asked Dad if he needed any money, and he said he's been saving the money I sent him since we announced the wedding. After dinner, I gave Alice a kiss to let her know I'll see her tomorrow. Alice has already RSVP'd to the wedding and she didn't tell me the exact number, saying I'm nervous enough already. I know my siblings, aunts and uncles and their families will be there. I heard that motels in both counties are booked months in advance. I hope our guests can find accommodation on Saturday morning. When I wake up, my mother insists that I eat breakfast. I can't go hungry all day, And at breakfast my mother mentions that they met the Carters and found them to be very friendly people who spoke highly of me. After breakfast, I take a shower, shave, and put on the tuxedo white to match Alice's dress. My brothers were also wearing black tuxedos. The four of them were members of the wedding party. It was time to go to the church. The church was located in a neighboring county, but only 20 miles away. The church was very large, and my brother mentioned that it could accommodate more than 600 people. As guests began to arrive, my brothers and I helped them find seats. As soon as they came in, they said that I didn't have to help, but I insisted. Joan and her daughter arrived, and I arranged for them to sit with Alice's relatives on her side. I was happy to see some colleagues at the event, as I hadn't seen them for years. My boss Mark and his wife had flown in especially for the wedding. Then I was shown to the front of the church, as Alice's limousine had arrived and I wasn't supposed to see her before the ceremony. I went up and had a brief chat with my parents. A lady started playing some music on the organ. After a few songs, the wedding was about to begin and the host announced that guests should take their seats. Every wedding has its own unique style. I walked to the front and stood next to the priest. The first to walk down the aisle was Sandy, accompanied by my brother. They looked very much in love. They took their place at the front, followed closely by Mary, who walked down the aisle with my other single brother. After that, my married brothers walked down the aisle with their wives. One of my nephews walked down as ring bearer, while I kept the real wedding ring in my pocket. Two men spread a white cloth, and my niece strolled down the aisle, scattering rose petals. The music started. Everyone stood up. The wedding march started. Alice, led by her father, slowly walked down the aisle. She looked like an angel. I felt tears welling up in my eyes. Her mother and father handed her over to the groom. We exchanged our vows. I put the ring on her finger, and was then allowed to kiss the bride. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to introduce you to Mr. and Mrs. Charles Jones. Everyone, stand up and cheer. We stood at the church door and joined IDE and the rest of the wedding party in thanking everyone who had attended the wedding. The people in the church took more than 30 minutes to disperse, all of them going to the rented hall. When we arrived at the hall, there were drinks and appetizers for everyone. The band was playing, although not many people were dancing at the time. The cables had already been laid. As soon as we entered, the whole room stood up and cheered for us. After we took our seats, Mr. Carter gave a speech and then announced that the food was ready. The tables were set up on both sides to ensure that everyone could get their food quickly. Although Alice and I were served first, we were probably the last to finish because we stopped every 10 seconds to kiss and respond to the clinking of glasses. Some tables were moved from behind the dance floor to make more room for dancing. Alice and I were among the first to hit the dance floor, followed by the rest of the wedding party, and then everyone joined in. The reception lasted the whole 4 hours, and some guests even went back for another round of food. It was a wonderful night. Epilogue. We had a great time on the cruise ship, and it was a wise decision to drive the truck to the wedding. I rented a small U-Haul and filled it with all the gifts we received. When we got home, we started looking for a new house and finally found a nice 3-bedroom house with a hot tub. We initially lived in my small apartment for a few weeks, but Alice felt that we needed a more spacious house. So we decided to leave the gifts we brought back at the Jones house, because we would not be living there. We asked her if she could live alone, and she assured us that she didn't have any financial problems, that she just liked taking care of Alice, but that now she and I would share that responsibility. Every night, we write thank you cards together. I believe we're almost done. Now we have lunch together about 3 times a week. It's been 3 months since the wedding, and everything is going well. We haven't had any arguments, and we always discuss and resolve our differences. People always say communication is key, and we've been actively practicing that. Alice mentioned that a friend from her other workplace called her, and Olivia found out that Bob was having financial problems and was in debt. There were also rumors that someone had suggested that Bob consider a DNA test when Olivia gave birth, but they weren't sure where the information came from. A few weeks passed and Alice got another call, this time to tell her that there had been some problems between Bob and Olivia. It turned out that Bob had taken a DNA test and the results had confirmed that he was not the father. That's crazy. Thanks for reading my story. The country music part is true. I did see it on PBS.